Hey everybody, it's Ron Johnson, and this is Locked On Sports Minnesota, and it's Friday, so you know what that means. It's Friday, yeah. It's Saturday, Sunday, what? Yep, it is Friday. This is Locked On Sports Minnesota. I'm Ron Johnson. I got Reggie Wilson joining me from KARE11. I got Sam Ekstrom joining me, Locked On Sports producer who does it all, and then our guest today. No Julia, no Cowboy the Cat. We got Gabe Henderson, Vikings insider, avid basketball fan, part-time golfer. I mean, Gabe just does it all. So we're going to talk to Gabe about all the things in Minnesota sports, golf, basketball, Final Four. I mean, there's so much to talk about. I mean, cornerbacks? I heard cornerbacks today. Jason McCourty talking about cornerbacks for the Minnesota Vikings and Brian Flores. He has some good stuff about that. He was on our partner NBC's with Dan Patrick. So we'll talk about that a little bit, but we got to get locked into the show, fellas. So, Reggie, what you got for me?
Wolves miss a golden opportunity to just lock up that top spot in the West. We're talking about how they fell to the Nuggets and how bad that fourth quarter was.
And speaking of the Wolves, a new wrinkle in the ownership squabble that might change the way you view it.
Well, I'm going to talk purple because we finally hear from Kwesi Adofo-Mensah. It's the last time we'll hear from him until the draft. And he had a lot to say when it comes to what the Vikings will do with those two first-round selections in the 2024 NFL draft.
And I want to talk about the Final Four. We're going to talk golf, but I want to talk about the Final Four. And I have a really key question for the fellas today. Caitlyn Clark, we know her floor seats went crazy towards the end of her career. Would you rather see Caitlyn Clark on the floor, or would you like to see one of today's stars? You got Shea, you got Anthony Edwards, you got Curry, LeBron. We'll talk about all that and much more coming up next on the roundtable. But today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That is $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150. Do I need to say it again? $150, win or lose. Now that's the kicker. Win or lose? Come on now. Visit FanDuel.com/locked on to get started. You just got to go in there and make a bet. You get $150 guaranteed. And then you can bet house money. I'll tell you this. Whoever the Timberwolves play in the first round of the playoffs, bet on that one. They're going to win at least one game in there. So figure it out. Put that money down. You got house money. Have fun with it. But now it's time to get started on the show. Gabe, start us off. What you got going on with the Vikings?
Yeah, well, Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, Vikings general manager, addressed the media earlier this week, and he had a lot to say. He described the draft as a blind auction when it comes to selecting a quarterback or getting the quarterback or the player that you want in the draft. And that blind auction pretty much means that you don't know who's behind you, basically saying, hey, I want it more than you, or hey, I got a little bit more money to provide to be able to get what I want. So it's one of those things where the Vikings, they have all of their scenarios intact. I actually talked to someone in the front office earlier this week, and I was asking him, he's a guy that's a seasoned veteran when it comes to working in the front office in the NFL. And he says this year is the most scenarios that he's ever had to come up with when it comes to putting together a draft board. So whether that's quarterback, whether that's cornerback, whether that's defensive line, Kwesi is all on board with trying to make this thing work this year. And if you look at what the Vikings have done in free agency, they've prioritized a lot of their dollars on the defensive side of the ball, in particular the pass rush. So pass coverage and under center are two positions of need that a lot of people are thinking that the Vikings will go in the first round. We don't know what it's going to look like. They do have the 11th overall pick and the 23rd overall pick. Maybe you can package that to move up. But if you can't package that and get what you want or get the guy that you want earlier in the draft, then arguably you're going to have the best defensive player fall to you at the 11th overall pick, and then use that 23rd overall selection to maybe move back and get the quarterback that you've been looking at for a while. So a lot of options on the table for this Minnesota Vikings team, but it was very interesting to hear Kwesi talk to the media yesterday and just discuss some of those risks that this Vikings team are willing to take if their guy is available at the point that they want him to be.
Reggie, what are your thoughts about the press? I mean, Gabe kind of laid it out there, what could happen at 11 and 23. What are your thoughts about what Kwesi said during the presser?
I thought it was interesting because, on this show in the Care 11 Sports Department, we like to say that Kwesi and Kevin O'Connell say a whole lot without saying much at all. And it's interesting because listening to Kwesi yesterday, I think that was the most insightful that we've gotten from him in a long time, even though he didn't tip his hand, at what could come or what they might do. But obviously, a lot of people wanted to know about quarterback. A lot of people wanted to just kind of get a little, I said last night, just get any kind of morsel on what the team's thinking was. And I thought it was interesting where he was like, look, man, because I think if you think about it in the context of them moving up, I think, he was like, well, you can't let things being risky determine how you do things, which I thought was pretty interesting because he's just like, look, there have been times where, teams have traded up or teams have, gotten a guy that they felt like was the guy. And if the environment wasn't right, if, the coaching wasn't right and didn't allow them to be the best versions of themselves, then they either failed or they sank or swam. And so I think that was an interesting thing. And I think he's confident in the group that he has and the coaching staff that he has that, whoever they take, they'll be able to put them in a position to succeed. And I think when you think about it, it's a very controlled environment. And you think about how they've kind of been doing all these private workouts with these quarterbacks and just trying to manipulate the environment and the situation just to see how, they'll perform. I think it's interesting because it's like, if you go off of what he said and then you go off of their actions pre-draft, I think they just take whoever they feel like gives them the best chance to run the system that they want to run effectively in the way that they want to do it. And sometimes you're like, well, if that's JJ McCarthy, it's like, do you trade up for a guy that you just basically want to be like a system quarterback? But if that's who you feel like is best to run the offense, then I guess, you trade up and you do what you have to do to get him. But I don't know. I'm still big on Penix. I don't know how that workout went, but what we heard was they put him through a rigorous routine through like 100 passes or something like that. And I know that those passes were probably spectacular. I just feel like they should stay put at 11, keep that 23rd pick, let Penix fall to them, and then take somebody else with that 23rd pick. And now you've really kind of remade the team. But then I kind of look at all these mock drafts and people have Penix going in like the second round. So I don't know, but I think it was interesting hearing what Kwesi had to say. He was very insightful, and I think he kind of gave us a little bit to think about without telling us too much.
Yeah, I find this to be very interesting how they're navigating the public facing part of this, because everything they're saying is trying to make the Vikings appear not desperate. We don't need to get in the top 5. We're good. We're flexible. We've got a lot of options, and they do. But I'm just curious how comfortable they're going to be when push comes to shove. Are they going to be comfortable gambling? I mean, number one, gambling on Penix and not getting one of the top 4 quarterbacks. But are they going to be comfortable waiting until 23 to see if he drops to them? Will they be comfortable trading back into the second round and seeing if he drops to them? Because if you miss out on that quarterback, then you've got nothing. Then you've got Sam Darnold. Then that's the season. That's the 2024 season right there. There goes the hope. There goes the future. Like you cannot afford to miss. I think you got to come away from this first day with the quarterback that you want, whether that's Penix, whether it's McCarthy, whatever. Are they comfortable gambling and trying to gain value by trading back out of a pick and then getting a quarterback later? I'm very nervous about that scenario, but Kwesi has said we're in love with multiple quarterbacks, and that could include, a quarterback like Penix who's not in that top 4. I'm so intrigued to see how close they're willing to get to that line of if we can trade back and get more picks, but we might miss on the quarterback. That's going to be a real tricky situation for Kwesi to navigate.
Yeah, and so playing this whole thing out, if you look at right now the draft boards, if you look at the top 10, you got Marvin Harrison Jr., Caleb Williams, Malik Neighbors, you got Drake May, Jaden Daniels, Joe Alt, the cornerback Mitchell from Toledo. Now, again, if that's a guy that falls to 11, I saw like I said, McCourty bought this up. Like the Vikings could take a cornerback at 11 and get a guy like Mitchell who has a ton of upside, could play in this man-to-man system with Brian Flores. I personally think that's a big number to jump and go get a cornerback from Toledo who hasn't gone up against a guy like Marvin Harrison. But again, everybody gets paid to throw their takes out there. But then you go down and I bought up Dallas Turner as an edge rusher. And then like Reggie said, if all of a sudden at 23, you can get a guy like Penix who you still think could be a good piece to this future of your at quarterback. Now you don't feel like you reached. Now you got to get, now the only thing is age though. You only get about 6 years before he's 30 or something like that. And so where does that leave you? JJ McCarthy fits the narrative because he's 21, but now you're starting to see people like, how did this guy jump into the top 4? What is everybody like? So again, it becomes a shell game of who's really telling the truth about what they really want. Is there a big plan for Kwesi that he's playing poker with these other GMs and he's just saying what he's got to say? Same with Belichick, trying to make people jump to come get number 3. At the end of the day, if you can get 2 first-round picks, I think you make your team better, period. Unless you just absolutely whiff. I know on that board, I've been told by a scout on the Vikings board, there are 3 quarterbacks that they have a plan for at 11 or if they have to do something else in the first round. And so clearly, Kevin O'Connell's watching enough film. He's comfortable enough with what he has to do with whatever pick is going to be. And at the end of the day, if he gets a rookie that only sticks around for 4 years that's serviceable, there's more drafts coming up. So there's other potential free agents down the line. So I think for the Vikings, it's just, hey, the Kirk Cousins train is ended. They got to figure it out. I think either way, Kevin O'Connell is a QB whisperer. What he got out of Josh Dobbs clearly tells me if he goes and gets one of these top quarterbacks that everybody's talking about, I think he can get it. He can get it out of them because he got it out of Josh Dobbs in about 2 weeks. So it is what it is. I think Kwesi is a mastermind. I will throw one quick question out for you guys though. Non-quarterback. So think about this, non-quarterback. So stay away from quarterback. You have to pick one position that you want them to draft if they have to use 23 or 11 on a non-quarter. Well, they have to. But what's one position? We don't have to talk about the player specifically, but just one position, quick, 30 seconds, gut reaction. What position do you think they should attack in that first round as well? I'll start with you, Sam.
Defensive tackle. Johnny Newton from Illinois would obviously be unbelievable, and that's the kind of player they just haven't had in the building in a long time, really since Sharif Floyd. It's been almost a decade since the Vikings had a legit 3-tech. Linval Joseph, more of a nose. He was awesome.
Yeah.
But a guy who can really get after the passer. And the Vikings didn't address that in free agency. I mean, Jerry Tillery, that is a stopgap. They obviously have Harrison Phillips who can do a little bit, but they don't have a lot at that position. I like how they've solidified the edge with Van Ginkel and Grenard. The middle still worries me, and that's been a weak spot for this defensive line for a while. Let's get some young talent in there. I mean, look at their draft history. I don't think they've taken a defensive tackle in the first 2 days in like 10 years. I mean, it's been forever. So I'd love to see him do that.
Reggie.
I think cornerback, I think especially at 23, I think they haven't done much to address that this offseason. So I just imagined that was going to happen in the draft. And, look, Andrew Booth still developing, not really sure what his game is really going to be when it's all said and done. But like, they really need some cornerback help. And I'm thinking about, a guy from my squad, Ennis Rakeshaw from Mizzou, or the kid from Clemson, or, I don't know that the guy from Toledo falls to 23, but I think there are a lot of good cornerback prospects in this draft, and I think they should take a swing at one if they decide to keep both of those picks in the first round.
Gabriel.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with interior pass rush, just someone who can stop the run, have an anchor, and or rush the quarterback. 2 guys come to mind, and they both played at the University of Texas last year. T'Vondre Sweat, who won the Outland Trophy Award for the best interior lineman in all of college football, and then his teammate, Byron Murphy II. I know people are saying, why have one Byron Murphy in your team when you can have two? So I think Byron Murphy II is a guy who won the Big 12 Defensive Lineman of the Year last year. He had 5 sacks, just a guy that can get after the quarterback. Both of those guys, when one person wasn't double teamed, the other person won. So I think both of those guys could fall to you at 23. I hate to put it this way, but if, T'Vondre Sweat didn't have, the situations that he's dealing with now, he would probably be a higher draft pick. So I just look at, a similar situation in Dalvin Cook a few years ago when he was coming out the draft. He would have been a first-round pick if he didn't have his situation at Florida State, which ultimately led to him landing with the Vikings. So if that is best case, if that happens, I believe that is best case scenario for this Vikings team, getting your quarterback at 11. I know you said don't talk about quarterback, but also get your interior defensive guy, like Sam said, later in the first round, if not early in the second.
Really quick, I was going to ask you that, Gabe. How worried would you be? It was just a DUI. Not great, though, from a character, bad decision.
Yeah.
But how worried would you be, or do you think the Vikings organization over the years have proven that, guys with little issues like that, we can get them in front of the right people and turn them around?
Yeah, I think the Vikings believe they can get them in front of the right people. You got guys like Les Pico here.
Yep.
The mental health coach. Everybody on this chat has been in the building, and you've seen the people that the Vikings work with that don't get any fame, don't get any shine, that ultimately keep these players on the field from a mental health or just a mental standpoint. And if that's the case, if that's his only slip up, I believe he'll be just fine.
And Reggie, I was going to ask you that real quick. When you heard the news about that, T'Vondre Sweat, I think he blew over a 1 at 300 plus pounds. Do you think that's just like a stress reliever, mental slip up for this young man? Because it's a lot going on right now.
Probably so. And, it's tough because, I think back to this Rashee Rice incident. He just turned himself in yesterday. These guys are young. They are about to or are coming into money that they've never experienced in their lives. There's a lot of pressure, on what's going on next in their lives. They're young, man. Like I think about some of the silly decisions I made when I was 20, 21 years old. And I'm like, I obviously nothing like that, but like, things like that happen. I think you shouldn't throw a guy away just because he does something like that. However, it is concerning. So you just want to make sure you get that nipped. You think back to the reckless driving from Jordan Addison that happened, but then you heard nothing else about his off the field anything after that with the Vikings. He had a solid year and a strong rookie year. So I think, as Gabe said, there's the right people in the building that could turn that around. And I think, whatever team he goes to, one mistake should not define him.
Yeah, and that's the thing about the NFL right now is everything in the news gets sensationalized. It's just what's the next headline that's going to happen. And he's just one of the guys that did it. Now, speaking of headlines, the Timberwolves haven't been in front of a lot of headlines. Like for some reason, they get disrespected. As the number 1 seed, nobody talked about them. As the number 2 seed, everybody's talking about the Nuggets. As the number 1 seed, people were talking about the Lakers. Now the Lakers have locked the play-in with the Warriors. That's the big news. Everybody's excited to see the Warriors-Lakers in a play-in game compared to whoever the Timberwolves are going to face and whoever the Nuggets are going to face. That's where today's NBA is at. They're looking for stars, and that's the reason why I want to bring up this Caitlyn Clark thing. Because I feel like even the NBA is searching for a star, and Caitlyn Clark has it for the WNBA. We'll talk about that. I got a few questions with that, but we got to move on to basketball. So with the Wolves, Reggie, break it down for us.
Yeah, so the Wolves missed a really big opportunity to kind of really establish. They would have gone up 3-1 in the series against Denver. Now it's 2-2. They still own the tiebreaker, so they can win out, and then Denver loses 1 of 2, which they got some cupcake games, one against the Spurs and I forget the other team that they're playing.
Grizzlies.
Yeah, the Grizzlies.
with nobody
barbecue
on the
chicken.
roster.
Yeah, barbecue chicken all day for Jokic. He's scoring 41 against the Wolves, and they're trying. Not that the Spurs and the Grizzlies wouldn't be trying, but nobody can mess with them. So I just 21-8 run from the third to the fourth quarter, and you had back-to-back backbreakers from Christian Brown dunking all over the Wolves. Like, it was just tough. I think something I mentioned yesterday, just the second night of a back-to-back in the high altitude just probably seemed to be too much. I think they just ran out of legs. I said Mile High City turned into Clank City. They couldn't buy a basket. It was a lid on the basket, and they couldn't keep up. Denver ballooned the lead to 16, and down the stretch, 2 minutes left. Chris Finch was like, "All right, I've seen enough."
Terrible offensive sets. Terrible offensive sets.
Oh my gosh! And these shots, the shot selection, they're missing layups. Like, it was really bad. And I know that Anthony Edwards said, "Look, we know what's at stake." And a game after he scored 51 points, and pretty much he played 38 minutes and pretty much played all the way up until the end, basically. I wondered, like, okay, how's that going to affect him the next night? And he wasn't as effective. And Jokic just, anybody who was on Jokic, just barbecue chicken, 41 points. It was a masterclass. And, the Nuggets just looked like a team in sync. They kind of reminded me of like UConn or something. Like, it's just everything was in sync. These guys have played together for a while. Everything worked. The offensive sets that they were running as opposed to what the Wolves were running, everything just seemed to work for them. And it was a tough loss for the Wolves in a game that they really needed, and now they need some help to be that one seed. And as you said, Ron, like, I feel like that was a chance for them to really like establish themselves and really kind of change some of the national narrative on them, because now it's just like, oh well, it is the Wolves. They should be good with second, 2 seed. That's fine. But I think they really had a chance there, and they just kind of let it slip through their hands in that third and fourth quarter.
Yeah, and Sam, I got a question for you specifically, though.
Yeah.
Reggie brought up a good point. They could have beaten the Nuggets, locked down the number 1 seed. Now they have to win the next 2, or one of the next 2, but the next 2 for sure. And they need the Nuggets to lose, and they have the tiebreaker because of, like, I think whatever divisional percentage or something, or conference percentage.
Yeah.
But you have a pretty good gap. I think they were like 800 or something, or 850, and the Nuggets were 650 in the division or in conference. I'm like, man, like, what is going on? But games like that matter. The Suns at the end of the season, even if they're the 2 seed, this game against the Suns now is a preview of most likely the 2 versus 7. Sam, does this change, though, how you feel about the Wolves and the Nuggets in the playoffs now?
Yeah, I mean, so there are a lot of asterisks in regular season games, especially when you're the defending champs. Like, it's hard to say that we saw maybe the best version of Denver in the previous 3 meetings. The first meeting was very early in the season. Denver's coming off that championship hangover. And granted, I think the Wolves handed them their first loss. But then the next meeting, the Wolves didn't have any big men, and maybe Denver took them a little lightly. The next meeting, they didn't have Murray. So there's a little asterisk with all those regular season meetings. I think there was really no asterisk next to this Denver game. Maybe they were both on the back end of a back-to-back, which kind of evens out. And this was a playoff atmosphere. Denver really sent their best forward, and I think they showed why they're the defending champs, and they showed why they're going to be the 1 seed, because at home in their building, they can flip that switch. And now they're probably going to get home court. So if the Wolves have to play them in the Western Finals with like a Game 7 in Denver, we saw what Denver's going to bring to the table. I mean, they're going to step up. Jokic is going to assert himself. I think sometimes he kind of sits back and dictates offense and distributes the ball. We saw him really assert himself offensively in that game against Rudy Gobert, who's not that easy to score against. So I think it does change the way we view this potential matchup, and it shows why it would have been nice to have that 1 seed. But now the Wolves have to go forward and beat who's in front of them, and they got a long ways before they play Denver again. I mean, they got to win probably 2 series against like the Suns and then probably the Thunder to get to that point. So now, what's going to happen between now and then? Are the Wolves going to be diminished with all the hard work that they have to do to get to the Western Finals? Are they going to go 6 or 7 games against these teams? There's just a lot of basketball to be played before these teams would meet again.
Yeah, and you brought up a good point about that, though, Sam. Like, when you think about a lot of basketball before they have to play the Nuggets, they also might not have to play the Suns. Like, we forget that this play-in, it could be the Lakers. I hate to say it, Reggie. I hope it's the Lakers. Like, I now hope it's the Lakers. Like, after the Lakers took it on the chin to the Warriors, I hope it's the Lakers. But, Gabe, looking at this playoff run for the Timberwolves, and you're a basketball guy. First question to you, because you're my basketball guy. I know you play a lot. You're from North Carolina, so I know how y'all get down there. When you think about Jokic, and Reggie kind of brought it up, and I for 5 or 6 straight series, I was like, oh my God, like down the court. Jokic gets the ball at the top of the key. He pump fakes. Gobert's out of his shoes. He drives. Next time, Gobert somehow ends up guarding like Murray, or so, it was the weirdest I had ever seen in my life. Like, and then Andrew Gordon has like a guard on him. Like, it was just dismay. If you're that guy, do you just let Jokic shoot threes? Like, that's the first part. Like, do you like just try to put a hand up versus letting him get his big body into the paint?
Initially, I do let him shoot. And that's the thing with Jokic. His first three that I think it was 2 minutes into the game, he had Gobert out on the wing, and Jokic stepped back, hit a three in his face. And it's like, oh, shoot, like this guy has confidence now. And if that's the case, like, that's a bad situation for Rudy Gobert. Like, anytime Rudy Gobert is out on the wing, like, that's not good for anybody on defense. So I do think you have to I'll put it this way. I do think when that's the case, that's when a guy like karl-Anthony Towns can help you, because he's a more athletic big that can step out, play a little bit more defense. And if, Gobert decides to drive, then you have Rudy Gobert that can play help. If Jokic decides to drive, that's when Rudy Gobert can play help defense, and that's when you can get back into your defensive set. So, I mean, Jokic, in my opinion, is still the best player in the game today. Like, there's nothing you can do to stop him. But at the end of the day, going back to the main point, is like, do we really? I mean, I remember talking on your show right before the season started, Ron, and I was like, do we really expect the Timberwolves to really make it to the Western Conference Finals? Like, objectively here, right? And like, even as a 2 seed, like, do we really expect them to figure this thing out once teams start playing defense? Like, I just personally, like, I just don't believe in them just yet. I think they just started to find their chemistry now. And I think once the team finds their chemistry, it takes them a bad loss in the playoffs to really get that identity, to get over that hump. So I believe this is the year where they finally find themselves and basically say, like, oh, wow, like, if we play defense, we can be a 2 seed. But they haven't played any team that's playing defense against them. So once they get that, they get, maybe a first, second round loss. The next year, they can finally get over that hump and hopefully get into the Western Conference Finals. But I don't know, man. Like, watching that Nuggets game, I'm just like, it pretty much states my point. I'm like, I grew up a Hornets fan, so like, I ain't got no hope, no way. But looking at this Timberwolves team, I'm like, I'm just not buying it just yet.
Well, there's levels to this, as a great rapper once said. And the Nuggets showed the Timberwolves that there's levels to this. And really quick analysis for me, Reggie hit it on the head. The sets. When you come down the court, I mean, if you watch Caitlyn Clark when she's cooking, not when she's like scared for her life against South Carolina at the end of the game, when she's cooking, when UConn is cooking, when South Carolina is controlling the game, it's the sets. When the Nuggets need to get a bucket, it's the sets. You watch the Nuggets. Jokic brings up the court. He says something in whatever language he speaks to the guy. He brings him up. He comes up. Aaron Gordon comes up, sets the screen. Illegal screen, by the way. I don't know if anybody noticed that. I've been like, illegal screens have been all over my face now. Like, I can't stop watching them. The Nuggets set a ton of illegal moving screens. But hey, it's the NBA. I'm not going to piss any more Iowa fans off by showing that video, but I might. Then, like, the next Nuggets game or playoffs for sure. Oh, I'm gonna post so many moving screens and be like, oh, I guess it's not Caitlyn Clark trying to get to the finals, but I'm not gonna do that today. They set screens at the top for Jokic, which is weird because he's not a driver. But then I realized what they're doing. They're just trying to make you guard the wrong person. And the minute you guard the wrong person, they get that person the ball. If it's Aaron Gordon, if it's Jamal Murray, if it's Jokic, if it's not Bobby Schmurder, who's their other guard, number
Reggie
7?
Jackson.
Reggie. Oh, it is Bobby Schmurder. He looks different now. Like, did he get a makeover? You don't really look like Schmurder no more.
Well, that's what the whole do to you.
He got money now. He got that shmoney. But Reggie Jackson, like, no matter who it is, they're taking advantage. If Reggie Jackson has Rudy Gobert, he took him. Like, if Aaron Gordon got a little man, he's screaming mouse in the house. Like, they get to the best. And then at the end of the day, Jokic, whoever's on him, if you're going to single him up, he's going to go. And he's aggressive. Like, he bangs and bumps and pushes. The rest let him play. And so that's what playoff basketball, the Timberwolves, and I think, Gabe, you said it to me too. I want to make sure I hit on that. Defense. They got to realize in the playoffs, they're going to let you get away with a little bit more aggressive play, and it's got to be the defense. You can't whine. You can't cry about it, and that's where they're going to need Cat back. Clearly, they showed they needed a secondary pass to a big because Gobert or what's his name, Jokic, didn't feel like he had to move. Like, Gobert's like standing within the paint. I don't have to go nowhere. I can rest. I don't have to run. They have to be able to get Gobert out the game and stretch the game out with Cat, Naz Reid, and Jaden McDaniels. Like, I now see why Gobert has to come out the game sometimes against a team like that. You got to stretch the floor out and spread them out. And then when they took Jokic out the game, I just felt like the Timberwolves didn't take advantage of it. And that was the other part. If they can rest Jokic and not have to worry about losing, that's when it's bad. And so the Timberwolves offensive sets were bad. But we went a little long in the first 2 segments. They were ridiculously good, though. We had to, but we got to break some breaking news. Money. I've never been a person to count people's pockets. That's why I grew up in Detroit. We don't count another man's pockets. But A-Rod, you was about to pocket tap. You was tapping pockets, A-Rod. He was over there tapping pockets. And we're going to talk about why Glenn Taylor might be the real 50 Cent in this. We'll talk about that much more after a word from our sponsors.
Brought to you today by Gametime on the Roundtable show. It's an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets super easy. You can get tickets up to an hour after the first pitch. They've got great last-minute deals. When you use the app, 2 taps, you get the tickets. You see the all-in price. You see the view from your seat. And at Target Field, they got some beautiful views. And with their lowest price guarantee, Gametime simply takes the guesswork out of buying Major League Baseball tickets. I've used the Gametime app. Used it actually for Timberwolves game this year, and it was absolutely the best value on the web. They've got flash deals where you save even more with exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of the game or event. And with zone deals, you choose the section. Gametime chooses the seats for great savings. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDON, LOCKEDON, for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed.
Well, we got about 15 minutes left in the show. We got to get going on this. So, Shams, Woj, I don't know who did it first. They all be trying to break news. Who cares? I'm going to let you guys know. I know everybody's not a big Power fan out there. I'm pretty sure Gabe, I hope Gabe and Reggie watched it. But 50 Cent in the show Power, there's a guy named Ghost. He's a drug dealer. And he did something. And 50 said, hey, whatever they say he did, your daddy did it. And that's what Glenn Taylor's trying to tell. He's trying to be 50 Cent for us. He's trying to tell us, hey, whatever they said A-Rod did, that dude did it. He's telling. He's like, look, we're talking billions now. I get it. If it was $1,000, I'd be like, man, you petty. Billion though? Oh, go get that billion, Glenn. He want that 1.5 billion. So when you think about $1 billion, here's where Glenn Taylor's at. He does want to sell the team. He was ready to move on. He's old. I mean, $1 billion for an old guy like that, he's good. He's going to go off and retire in the sun. Now he's like, look, let me $3 billion. I'm going to walk away, but I got to find a suitor that's not going to tear this team apart because they have a championship. Probably like Gabe said, if they lose this year, maybe next year they come back on fire. They got guys under contract, but there was some news drops. Sam, what was the news?
Yeah, here's the news. So, again, Glenn looked like the bad guy here. Glenn looked selfish. It looked like he wanted to double the value of the team and resell it. Now, the report from Woj or Shams, and I'm guessing this is a leak from Glenn Taylor's camp to make him look a little more sympathetic, but the report is that A-Rod and Lori submitted financial projections for the Timberwolves, and their projections had them slashing payroll. Now, we all know about this expensive roster, how the Wolves are going to go over the luxury tax next year. So if they're projecting a cut in payroll below the luxury tax, what does that mean? It means they're trading someone. It means they're cutting costs, probably trading a Karl-Anthony Towns, Jaden McDaniels, Naz Reid, some combination of them to get below the tax. Is Glenn Taylor actually the good guy? Is Glenn Taylor actually saving the Timberwolves from A-Rod and Lauri? Has it been a bait and switch the whole time with A-Rod and Lauri looking all generous, putting money into the team, injecting it with value, and then they're going to take the reins and then cut costs? Is that what's going to happen? We don't know. We got to let this play out. But I do have one hunch where maybe this isn't entirely a bad look for A-Rod and Lauri, because I don't know when these projections were put forward. Was this last year? Was it before the season? Was it last week? Because they very well may have wanted to cut costs going into the season, not thinking the Wolves would be this good. But the Wolves are legit, and that should change the decision-making. So the fact that they're a 1 or a 2 seed, they might go deep into the playoffs, that could change the equation for A-Rod and Lauri. So we don't know if they plan to trade Karl-Anthony Towns. Depends when those projections were submitted or if that report is even accurate. But it does make you think if Glenn Taylor is the secret hero that we've all needed.
Gabe.
Yeah, it's getting messy. I remember the first news of, I guess, Lauri basically taking his bid back, basically saying, Glenn Taylor basically taking the bid back, basically saying Alex Rodriguez and team didn't have enough money and time to make the official purchase and be the official majority owner. So to hear this news, man, I'm like, I'm here for it, but at the same time, I'm like, if we're a team and we want to win a championship, that starts at the top. And the top has to get its issues figured out first before you can start to get everything else sorted out. And if, this new ownership, Alex Rodriguez and team, were talking about, hey, let's get rid of Karl-Anthony Towns. Look, if it's their team, they got to make the decision. If it's not, then maybe that's the issue with, this whole bid, or I guess the timeline not being extended for their bid to be accepted. So we'll see, man. The drama is entertaining, but at the same time, I'm like, hey, why can't we just have nice things here in Minnesota? Like, let's finally figure this thing out and hopefully build a team here that's sustainable and be able to win multiple championships for years to come.
Get Reggie.
So it's really fishy to me, because if you remember, like when it first came out, it was like, oh, A-Rod and Lauri, they were big behind bringing Tim Connolly here, and Glenn was just like, people like him don't come to the Timberwolves. But then, he goes on this media tour and lets people know that they didn't have the money. And then A-Rod and Lauri comes out and they're like, look, we did have the money. We don't know what's going on. He just dropped a nuclear bomb on us. But then now this report comes out that, Glenn is not trying to, allow them to slash payroll and all that because the Timberwolves are actually good. It's just like there are so many conflicting stories. It just kind of makes you feel like, okay, what can you believe? I think the first time it made Glenn look really bad. So as you said, Sam, I wouldn't be surprised if he kind of let that leak a little bit to Woj and Shams, like, hey, like, yeah, look what these dirty dudes were trying to do. While they, they talking all big and bad, like they're the saviors for the Wolves. Yeah, well, here, let me float this to you. And it's just interesting because now, what the tough part about this whole thing is Silver was like, hey, y'all stop talking about this business all out in the streets like this. Like, we don't need this bad press. So now that this has been leaked out there, I don't know if A-Rod and Lauri have a way to leak something else, because now it's being like this little petty game. But now it's like they, this would be the time where they probably would want to say something, but now they can't because they are not allowed to publicly talk about it. So like
they can't even get to the building.
Yeah, this story got floated out there now, and now they can't say anything about it, and they just look bad now.
It's got to be pictures. They got to find pictures of Glenn Taylor with like staring at J-Lo or something at this point. Like, I feel like A-Rod should be studied. Like, you lose J-Lo and the Timberwolves? Like, you talking about a baseball player? I know there ain't no fumbles in baseball, but this dude, if he was a running back, I'm taking him out the game. Actually, if he was a running back, he would fit well on the Vikings because he's fumbled big twice. But the season's over. I'm not going to bring that up anymore. We're not going to talk about fumbles. It's a new year. There will be a new running back in town. There will be a new quarterback in town. There will be no more fumbles. The one thing I didn't bring up was because you guys talked about draft pick guy that you would take. Brock Bowers. Like, I never bought that one up. I don't think they can get him. It would be dumb. They already got TJ Hockenson, but I love his game. Just a random fumble thing that popped up in my head when I was thinking about getting new players because Hockenson can't play. But yeah, A-Rod fumbled J-Lo. He fumbled the Timberwolves maybe. And they got to leak something.
And he fumbled that's 211 game suspension. Remember that when he played?
Yeah, I forgot. He tested positive, right?
Yeah.
So he might not ever make the Hall of Fame. Now that I think about it, because the way they treating Barry Bonds, A-Rod might not ever make the Hall of Fame. They're not playing with this stuff. Like you juiced, you ain't getting loose. Shout out to OJ. But we got to move on to the Final Four. We got about 8 minutes left in the show. Yeah, Reggie, sometimes it just goes off the rails. I can't help myself. Really quick, because we got to do that. We got to read coming up from our sponsors and FanDuel, and then we want to talk quick about the Masters if we have time. But Final Four, I'm going to just be quick with mine. Final Four came up. Iowa, I mean, we know that the women's was way more exciting than the men's this year, unfortunately. Like, every game UConn got in, they eventually just dominated it. Purdue's Final Four game was better than the championship game. And so that was fun. But my question to the group was Caitlyn Clark courtside versus another player. Now, here's the thing. If my courtside tickets are in Iowa, hell no. I don't want to go. I don't want to be there on the floor. But if she's going to come to Minnesota, give it to me. If she's going to Ohio State, I'll take it. WNBA, if she's coming to play the Lynx, give me the floor with Caitlyn Clark. I just want to see it. I want to see it happen because she is great. In the NBA right now, the only player to me right now that makes me want to touch the court is Anthony Edwards. Like, he's one of the most exciting. I really, at this point in his career, I don't know if I would care to watch Steph over Caitlyn Clark. But that's just me. I don't know. I'll throw it to you, Sam. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think the allure to me of being courtside for a game is the atmosphere beyond the players on the court. So is there buzz? Is there electricity in the building? Do you feel like the spotlight is really on this game? Are you witnessing something special holistically? We've yet to see if the Caitlyn Clark phenomenon will extend to the WNBA. Is she going to pack every arena that she's in? Is it going to be the Steph Curry effect where every Warriors game is the most expensive ticket on the schedule? Obviously, Clark will be joining a bad team. Is she going to make that a competitive team where the games really mean something? I'm sad. I'm sad that she's leaving college basketball because every single game that she played in at the college level was an electric atmosphere. Get me courtside tickets for that 100%. She is so special in the way she pulls up from beyond the half court line and lets it fly. Let's see how it translates to the WNBA, whether she is as transformative there as the NCAA. And when she comes to town, I'm guessing Indiana playing the Lynx. Yeah, that would be a great ticket because I think Minnesota basketball fans are so familiar with Caitlyn Clark from the Big Ten. They're going to show up, and that's going to be a big feeling game.
Yeah, Gabe.
Yeah, I'm going to make mine quick. I do think Caitlyn Clark is phenomenal and must see, and yeah, I would love to see her courtside. However, I would want to see Wembanyama courtside more.
Wemby's a good one. The team sucks though, but Wemby's a good one.
That's cool. Like
churros.
To see 7'6" handle the ball like a point guard, and then him do a windmill from the free throw line without his feet leaving the ground. Like, I want to see that in person. Like that is must see courtside action. So I love what Caitlyn has done for the game, but I would much rather see Wemby.
Reggie.
Yeah, I love what Caitlyn is doing as well. But I'm with you, Ron. Like, I feel like I would say LeBron, but like, he's older now. Like, and I have seen him courtside from my my media seat before. Mm-hmm. So I'm with you. I go Anthony Edwards.
Yeah. I think Anthony, like LeBron, there's an allure. Like, I don't think he'll ever do the farewell tour thing. Maybe he will, but maybe he won't. But I mean, he'll probably have a movie. Like, all knowing LeBron, he'll have camera crews and do a movie of his last one. Maybe Bronny's on the team. Maybe that's what he's setting up for. But we're going to talk a little bit about the rest of this show. We got to, at the end, I'm going to have some quick questions for the guys, rapid fire, but we have a word from our sponsors.
FanDuel brings us today's show. Great new promotion at FanDuel. Win or lose, you can get $150. New customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when they sign up at FanDuel, and they can bet the NBA playoffs coming up, NHL playoffs, and Major League Baseball now in full swing, plus the Masters going on right now. Get in that action. Bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all on the safe, secure, easy-to-use FanDuel Sportsbook app, or go to FanDuel.com/lockedon, FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make your first bet an automatic win. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook.
Well, we got about 2 minutes left, and we're going to get this in quick, fellas. The Masters. Max Homa has teed off. He is 1 under, so he's already making a push. He's 6 under for the whole tournament. He's making a push. He's tied for second now. But when you think about the Masters, one, let's start with Tiger Woods really quick. Tiger Woods, 1 off of the cut. He's in there right now. But do you think Tiger Woods will ever kind of get back to where he was, Reggie?
You want to believe, right? You know, the fact that he's out there and he's healthy enough to do it, like you want to believe. I think he has at least one more in him.
Sam.
I've watched probably every hole of Tiger Woods golf since he returned from his car accident, and I'm telling you, it's all been the same. Like, the body just doesn't have it in him. Like, today he has to play 23 holes because yesterday got too dark to finish.
Right.
I don't know if he's going to make it. I mean, I'm watching him right now putting for birdie. He's +1 in the tournament. Tiger's peak right now is grinding for pars, just trying to make cuts, trying to play all 4 rounds. I mean, he's only shown that he can finish a tournament like 2 out of 6 times, I think, in his return from the car accident. So I feel like we've seen the best of him. He had the major championship in 2019 that we didn't expect. I think that's his pinnacle.
Gabe.
I agree with Sam. I learned yesterday that golfers can apply for like a handicap so they don't have to walk the course. This is my first time ever watching the Masters. People who know me know I just got into golf like 2 or 3 years ago, like seriously. So I believe if he can get that and it's not frowned upon, then he has a better chance of winning because his legs won't hurt from walking the course. But until then, it's going to be tough for him to win again.
Yeah, and walking the course, I mean, we all know that is tough for those that have done it. It's not an easy thing to do. Really quick, last one before we get out of here, fellas. Is there anybody on this list, when you think about some of the names that were famous that aren't even up there right now, is there anybody other than Bryson DeChambeau, Max Homa, and Scheffler that you want to see make a push towards day 2 or 3 and 4? Start with you, Sam.
Yeah, well, you mentioned the guy that I want. It's Max Homa. Max Homa he's never won a major. He's one of the most likable guys in golf. He's got an awesome game, and he's right up there in the leaderboard. And I'm not a big DeChambeau guy. I hope Homa overtakes him and gets his first green jacket.
Gabe.
Same thing Sam said.
Reggie.
Give me some Finau love. I'm with you now.
I was looking at that, and I'm going to throw some names out there that are super old. We got about a second, 2 before we get out of here. But I kind of want to see Phil Mickelson. Like, I don't know why. Like, it's just, like, nostalgic. I just want Phil to, like, kind of be in this, him and Bubba Watson. And then I really want Brooks Koepka to make a push, because Brooks Koepka making a push and being able to see, like, Bryson DeChambeau in the weeds, like, that would feel like a Billy Madden or Happy Gilmore type of moment. Like, Brooks Koepka seeing Bryson DeChambeau, like, oh, I'm coming for you. But looking forward to that. But yeah, everybody checking out the Masters, make sure you do it. And also, Locked On Sports Minnesota, you can get us 24/7 every single day, all hours of the day. Just go to our YouTube feed and you can check it out. Just go to Amazon Fire, Roku, whatever your device is, but you can get the Wild, the Wolves, the Twins, the Gophers, and of course the Vikings. I'm Ron Johnson. That was the boys. Have a great weekend.